My archenemy David seemed to have a different temperament after I kissed him. In the past, he always avoided me as if I were a ferocious beast, and would flee in a hurry when he saw me. But behind my back, he frequently sent me anonymous text messages, and the words were full of intimacy and affection. "Baby, can you kiss me again today? Baby, you have beautiful eyes, can you just look at me?" These text messages followed me everywhere, pulling at my thoughts and making me increasingly confused about his behavior. During class, his message popped up on my phone again. "Baby, you dressed so cutely today, I like it so much, I secretly kiss you in my heart carat oh carat." I sighed silently, put the phone back in its place with a normal expression, and twirled the pen casually with my fingers, trying to calm the waves in my heart. David's gaze behind me became increasingly gloomy, and the speed at which I spun my pen became faster. I knew very well that he was staring at me. His gaze was dark and damp, sticking to me, making me feel as if I was tied up and entangled by water plants, making it difficult for me to breathe. The sound of the teacher tapping the blackboard broke the silence. David withdrew his gaze and I stopped spinning the pen. While he was writing with his head down, I turned my head and glanced at his handsome face calmly. "David, is this your new trick?" David has always loved playing pranks on others, especially me. Logically speaking, as a child of destiny, he shouldn't have too much interaction with ordinary people like us. Even if he enjoys playing pranks on us, we should be flattered. But I had no time to play these boring games with him. I was fully focused on making money, juggling 3 jobs and running around busy, so I really had no intention of dealing with him in this farce. A few days ago, David came to my workplace and caused trouble. On a midsummer night, the cicadas are chirping, the bars are brightly lit, and people are indulging themselves in pleasure while drinking. When I entered the private room with my drink, David was drinking and partying with his friends. When they saw me come in, they pretended to be surprised, and then teased me jokingly, especially David. He shook his wine glass, a provocative curve at the corner of his lips, and the silver earring on his right ear sparkled in the reflection of the wine glass. I walked up to the table and was about to put down my glass and leave, but David suddenly put down his glass and grabbed my wrist. His knuckles were hot, pressing my wrist bones tightly. I slowly raised my eyes to look at him. He smiled and winked at me, suggesting, "Class monitor, why don't you stay and play with us?" His friends all cheered, and few could refuse David's invitation, not only because of the power behind him, but also because of his outstanding appearance. I glanced at David's fair and delicate ears and shook my head gently to refuse. "Thank you for the invitation, but I still have work to do." David was still smiling, but his hand was still strong. He said, "You have already rejected me once with this excuse." He also threw out a bait, "It can be your job to accompany us. If you accompany us well, you can be responsible for all the wine in our private room." I narrowed my eyes slightly and asked gently, "What if I don't want to accompany you?" David shrugged slightly, his calm tone concealing a threat. "You don't want us to cause a scene at your workplace, do you?" I silently glanced at the camera equipment on the table that had started recording, knowing that I had fallen into his carefully laid prank trap and there was no room for refusal. This feeling of powerlessness, of having one's destiny controlled by others, is extremely annoying. I raised my imprisoned wrist, frowned slightly, and explained, "You are too hard, it hurts me a little." David's fingertips trembled, and his previous calmness was disturbed. He quickly withdrew his hand and picked up the wine glass. But just as he was about to lift it, I got there first. I leaned over, held David's glass, and said with a smile, "If you want to accompany me, I will definitely accompany you well. However, our definition of companionship may be different from yours, David." Under everyone's gaze, I picked up the glass and drank it all. Then I turned my head and kissed David on the lips in front of his astonished gaze, passing all the hot wine in my lips to him. When lips and teeth touch each other, body fluids generate heat. David just stood there in a daze, letting me kiss him without saying a word, neither pushing him away nor dodging, but just staring at me with his beautiful eyes wide open. I wildly guessed that this person might have been ruined by my kiss. With a gurgling sound in his throat, I gently pushed him away. He tilted his head back, his dark eyes following me like a mechanical locator, his soft and plump lips glistening with water. I turned my eyes away guiltily, thinking, "Forced kissing is immoral, but you were the one who provoked me first." But the water light was so alluring that I couldn't help but pick up the tissue and move closer, and my hot breath lingered around her again. David blinked as if he was facing a threat, but I just gently wiped the water away and then stepped away. David's fingers brushed across my wrist, where there was a red mark he left, and the slight friction caused a tingling sensation. I smiled at him and said, "I finished the wine, David." Then he turned around gracefully and left the stage gracefully to everyone. "I wish you all a good time." Since that night, the situation has become particularly serious. I suspect that David was really ruined by my kiss, in the literal sense of the word. At school, he would run away as soon as he saw me, as if I were some kind of monster. When my classmates saw this scene, they were all amazed and asked me how I tamed this lone wolf. At this moment, in their eyes, I have transformed from a poor child bullied by school bullies to a Gojin who endured humiliation and slept on straw to taste gall. My good friend who had previously advised me not to go against David also gave me a thumbs up in appreciation and asked me curiously how I took down David. My eyelids were twitching and I felt mixed emotions. How about it? I just kissed him. I really didn't expect that a kiss could be so destructive and leave such serious after-effects on David. But that was my first kiss after all. Could it be that the effect was so bad that it disgusted him to this extent? I subconsciously wanted to touch the corner of my lips, but what came to my mind was the alluring light of water. However, the illusion was that although David ran away every time he saw me, the frequency of our accidental encounters was slowly increasing. Many times, when I turned around in school, I met David's complicated gaze. He always hides in every corner of the school, not too far from me, as if waiting for something. His eyelids were lowered, and his gaze was anxious and obscure. He looked at me, hesitant to speak. I hesitated to say hello, but David hurried away from me. His escape route was also a bit unusual. He always passed by me, with his shoulders almost touching mine, raising a gust of hot wind. People walked away, but the hot wind remained blowing. "It's a bit hot." I stood there, thinking blankly. Despite this, the trick game was temporarily put on hold. Although the battle of wits and courage with David was exciting, it was also exhausting. Now, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief and return to my normal life, wandering between study and work. Life was pretty leisurely until an anonymous text message arrived. "Baby." The words and phrases are stiff, the tone is awkward, and the visual effect is extremely bad, as if they were forcibly put together. It was like an inconspicuous pebble thrown into the lake at random, without causing any ripples. When I saw this text message after work, I just glanced at it wearily, thinking it was sent by mistake and didn't take it seriously. Unexpectedly, the anonymous person regarded this as tacit approval, and text messages poured in like a rainstorm. In the classroom, the teacher was speaking eloquently at the podium. I was twirling my pen absent-mindedly when I suddenly heard a faint ding sound. The second inexplicable text message appeared. "Baby, baby, I see you." A subtle panic came over me and I frowned. Then, another one. "Bow, bow. What's wrong with you? Please don't frown, it will hurt me." My pupils gradually dilated, and I suddenly felt a chill down my spine. My body shrank, and I gritted my teeth and thought, am I being targeted? The anonymous text messages seemed to be a trick used by him to tease me. The affectionate names and overly intimate content made me furious. I kept trying to block him, but it was no use. He always changes his phone number to send messages. "Baby, it's so cool when you block me, I like it, what a pervert." I was extremely angry, but I knew I couldn't act too aggressively and had to adopt a conciliatory policy and use friendly persuasion. Since it was received during class, the person was most likely a classmate. I thought for a moment, watching the screen of my phone light up and then dim, and I made up my mind to send him a message for the first time. "Classmate, may I ask, who are you?" As soon as the message was sent, he replied excitedly. The man avoided answering and said complacently, "Baby, you finally pay attention to me, I'm so happy, smiley face." I took a deep breath and continued to induce, "If you want to talk to me, we can talk in person. I will listen carefully. So please don't do that anymore, okay?" All around was quiet, I held my breath, and in a moment, with a ding sound, the message came. "Baby, you are so cute. You clearly wanted to trick me into meeting you, and you even said it in such a nice way. What a mean little guy." I pressed the screen and another message slid by. "Even though we've met, you won't talk to me anymore." After sorting out my thoughts, I drew a profile of him based on the information from these questions and answers. He speaks frivolously, pretends to be intimate and coquettish, is very clingy, but is actually very defensive and difficult to deal with. I couldn't help but lament how I could have suffered such a disaster. Although I am the class monitor, I am very impartial and have little private contact with my classmates. My busy studies and work do not leave me any free time. But the sentence "we've met, but you won't pay attention to me anymore" made me feel weird. His behavior is very contradictory. The text messages he sends me are intimate and unrestrained, but he has never caused me any real harm. It can even be considered an alternative form of care. Different varieties of flowers appeared under my desk every day, inexplicably extra orders appeared at work, the collection of novels that I mentioned casually, and the concert tickets that were out of reach, all appeared on my desk. If text messages didn't exist, I would really suspect that he was Doryman. Although these gifts are touching, they are also dangerous. They reveal a terrible possessiveness and desire for control, controlling everything I see and think. I discussed with him again and asked him to stop giving gifts. "Baby, don't you like those gifts?" I didn't dare to anger him, so I responded tactfully, "I do like those gifts, but I prefer to get them myself rather than have them given to me by others." He was silent for a moment, then bargained, "How about this, baby? I want to see your hands. Your hands are very thin and white, very beautiful. Please take a picture for me. I will not send you any more gifts from today, and I will not bother you any more today." Every word and sentence forced me to lower my bottom line. My eyes were red with anger and my patience was exhausted, so I typed asshole. But he was happier. "Baby, you can still get angry, so cute." I had no choice but to take a photo of my hand and send it over. Just when I was about to turn off the phone, he replied, "I really want to kiss you." My body trembled, shame surged, and my eyes turned red. The phone rang again. I didn't dare to look at it and turned it off in a hurry. At first, he only had a soft spot for his hands, but later he greedily moved on to his eyes and ears. "Baby, there seems to be a red mole under your ear. Can I take a look? Baby, why are your eyes red again? So pitiful. Can I touch it through the photo?" The request seems friendly on the surface, but it is actually a step-by-step pressure. I don't have the right to refuse. I can only keep compromising and dealing with him carefully, like dancing with danger, with every step being thrilling. I tried to induce him in the opposite direction, but the information I got didn't match that of my classmates. Maybe I was going in the wrong direction from the beginning. His intimacy was just a disguise. In fact, "Linda." My good friend Kelly shook me, and I came back to my senses and forced a smile, but my voice was hoarse. Kelly asked worriedly, "Linda, do you have a cold?" She checked my temperature, her expression changed, and she scolded me for having a fever. I was slow to react. I touched my cheek and felt a burning sensation, my breathing became rapid, and my brain felt dizzy. But I had to go to work in the evening, so I forced myself to calm down, comforted Kelly and told her to go to the infirmary to get medicine. Kelly frowned and wanted to accompany me, but I refused. However, after taking a few steps, I felt dizzy and my vision was blurry. I stopped and only heard Kelly calling me. My consciousness became chaotic and my body lost weight. I thought I was going to fall to the ground, but I fell into a warm embrace, and David held me tightly. "Linda, you are sick." The young man's clear voice came, and I wanted to respond, but I was powerless and could only grab his clothes. The noise in the classroom died down, and David picked me up without waiting for my answer. I snuggled in his arms, my consciousness blurred. Being hugged, with our skin touching, I could feel his body trembling. The flu was coming on strong and I felt so uncomfortable in David's arms that I didn't know what to do. Although the distance from the classroom to the infirmary is short, every second is long and difficult. David's hands gently patted my waist, like he was coaxing a child, and I felt a little comforted. I curled up and snuggled into his arms, as if returning to the warm harbor of my childhood. David was stunned for a moment, his hands stopped in midair. I demanded unhappily, "I want more from you. Continue." He sighed helplessly and continued to pat his hands soothingly. I smiled with relief, but the peace didn't last long. David gently placed me on the bed and prepared to leave. My heart sank, I was filled with fear of being abandoned, tears silently rolled down my cheeks. David's slender fingers brushed across the corners of my eyes, wiped away the tears, and asked in a low and hoarse voice, "Why are you crying like this?" I choked up and begged him not to leave, but he deliberately said in embarrassment, "Then how are you going to keep me?" I could only put my cheek close to his hand and beg him again. He pressed my red eyes and whispered in my ear, "Be good." The rest of the words dissipated into the air. I sensitively caught those two words, baby. When I woke up from my daze, I saw David and I holding hands. The sun is shining, the breeze is not dry, and the curtains flutter in the wind. I looked at the boy sleeping beside the bed with confusion and timidity. The nurse pushed the door open and said with a smile, "Your boyfriend has been taking care of you for a long time and he refuses to leave no matter what I say." Boyfriend? What a misunderstanding. But the warmth of our palms made me lose the courage to refute. I recall with shame the absurdity of my illness. David's soft words of persuasion and sweet talk made the nurse blush, but I, who was sick, preferred these words. The more I thought about it, the more ridiculous it became. What on earth was David doing? These days, playing has turned into escape, and now it has a kind of false intimacy, but there is no relationship between us. And that word baby that seems real but not real, is it a coincidence or an illusion? I frowned and my nails unconsciously scratched the back of his hand, drawing a string of blood. I wiped it hurriedly, and the noise woke David up. He looked up sleepily, stumbled, and banged his foreheads together. We separated our hands, covered our foreheads, and gasped in pain, but no one looked away as we stared at each other. After a while, David lowered his head, avoiding my gaze, and asked stutteringly, "Are you feeling better now?" My heart beat faster and I turned my head away, looking around. "I think I'm feeling better now. Thank you for today." David seemed dissatisfied with my ambiguous answer. He turned sideways, reached out his hand, lifted the strands of hair on my forehead, and came close to me. "Well, the fever is gone." I turned around in surprise and saw David, as if he had been burned. He hurriedly withdrew his hand and put it behind his back. He looked flustered and his words were incoherent. "I just wanted to confirm, I secretly clicked my tongue. Is this still the rebellious David? At this point, I decided to take a risky move. David is at a loss now, so this is a good time to test it. I deliberately moved closer and gave him a reassuring smile. "I know you care about me, thank you." I took advantage of his distraction, took his hand from behind, bent down and blew gently on the wound. His fingertips trembled violently in my palm. I didn't look up to detect David's expression, but I could feel his lowered eyes moving over me. Dangerous, aggressive, yet a little timid. I pretended not to notice, wiped the blood with a calm expression, and said with regret, "Don't let such beautiful hands be scarred because of me." "What will you do if you get a scar?" After a moment's silence, David spoke softly. His voice was as mellow as wine, and a little bewitching. I was startled, the turmoil that had been suppressed began to surge again, and I subconsciously repeated, "Then what should I do?" David took the initiative and pressed me down with the hand I was holding. He looked serious and solemn, as if he was going to make a vow to each other. "Then you promise me?" David pondered over his words, each one carefully and solemnly. "Don't kiss anyone else anymore." My brain was disconnected, but David didn't let me think and begged me again, "Promise me, okay?" The upturned ending tone entangles my thoughts. I looked at his sinister expression and gave up struggling, "Okay." After agreeing, David looked at me quietly, a little surprised. He let go of my hand, not daring to look at me again, and ran away in panic, leaving behind "Then you have a good rest." I looked at his back, breathed a sigh of relief, and turned on my phone. Sure enough, while David was taking care of me, the anonymous text messages stopped. This can't be a coincidence. The anonymous person's possessiveness towards me is terrifying even through the screen. If I were alone with someone for such a long time, there is no way he would just stand by and watch. So, am I being fooled again? Is David taking revenge on me? Just because of a kiss? After David calmed down, he probably thought of this. Using the identity of Anonymous, he expressed overly intimate greetings and concern to me, and pretended to blame himself, saying David has bad intentions, baby, you'd better stay away from him. The level of blame is much lower than others. I found it funny. After the mystery was solved, I looked at these anonymous text messages again. I was no longer scared. Instead, I was curious, what tricks is this person playing? Since he wants to play, I will play with him. In the following days, David avoided me openly but bombarded me with text messages secretly. I was curious about how long he could last, and I also wanted to add some fun to the game. This time he asked me to send him a photo of my lips. I no longer compromised but bargained. I can promise you, but you also have to send me a photo of your lips. From now on, you have to send me whatever you ask me to send. The screen kept deleting and reducing the last 3 words. Why? I typed slowly to throw out the bait. Don't you want me to see you too? The fish is hooked. Although the photo is blurry, I don't care because I have locked on to the reference object. David has delicate features that are unforgettable. I compared the details of the photo and was certain that the anonymous person was David. This game is a farce, and all that's left is the final showdown. Linda, why are you distracted again? Are you sick again? Kelly grabbed my jaw and turned me around. No, I'm thinking. Kelly said oh and asked maliciously what it was about. She also asked if it was about David and if he had confessed his love for me. I was shocked and covered her mouth, whispering how could he like me and whether he was trying to play a trick on me. Kelly said that I had a fever and fainted a few days ago, and it was David who was quick to pick me up and rushed me to the infirmary in time. He was able to make it even though he was so far away, but I couldn't even though I was so close. Kelly laughed at me for being too confused. Are those in power confused? I have always been clear-headed and never get involved easily, but now I am confused. David's gentle pats, affectionate coaxing, and staying with me until I was tired and fell asleep, was it because he loved me? But would it be like this? Sending anonymous messages can make the loved one panic and fearful. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, blaming David in my heart. I hated him for disrupting my life and for making me feel uneasy. I asked him, what would you do if you met someone you hated? He replied, I don't care. After thinking carefully, I replied, I don't hate anyone. This message has not been replied for a long time. The next morning, I saw a message from David at 4 a.m. If I don't hate anyone, then is there anyone I like? I asked myself, yes. But liking something is a luxury and I don't have enough money. I replied yes. He asked who. I replied Robert, wanting to get back at him. After the message was sent, David was silent for a day. In the evening, I received a text message from him, baby, you have such a bad vision. How can Robert compare to David? You might as well like David as you like him. I held back my laughter and replied, but David, he must hate me. He never hated you, he was just afraid that you would ignore him. I asked how he knew that and the conversation stopped. After a while, he replied, I heard it from others. Anyway, Robert is not a good person, baby, you are not allowed to like him. I will prove it to you. It seems that David is eager to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. David has strong execution capabilities. A few days later, Robert called me after school and said he wanted to go to the rooftop to talk with a pale face. When I went to the appointment, it was windy on the rooftop. Robert couldn't explain it clearly. He listed his shortcomings and talked about his great achievements and looked at me. In the end, he was so defeated that he begged me not to like him. When I asked him the reason, he refused to tell me because he was afraid of being killed. I turned and asked about the box. Robert said that David invited me to his birthday party, but I declined because of work. So he went to his workplace to celebrate his birthday again, but he couldn't let go of his pride. I said coldly, this is not an invitation, it is clearly a disturbance. Robert sighed and said that it was a social tragedy that David's first kiss was taken away by me. I was embarrassed and annoyed, so I told him to stop talking. Before leaving, Robert thoughtfully suggested that I take David in to prevent him from getting in trouble. After thinking it over, I agreed if he was good. At this time, David sent me a text message asking me not to stay on the rooftop with Robert for too long, otherwise he would be angry. I waved my phone and told Robert to get down quickly. I've been thinking about when to show my hand. Anonymous texting became a two-way interactive game, and I became addicted to it. David sent me an intimate message, and instead of panicking, I responded. He was very warm to me, and I rewarded him by sending him a photo of his collarbone. However, he felt aggrieved and jealous, saying that he was afraid that he was a bad person and was bullying an innocent baby. I asked him to be better, and he agreed. I receive anonymous breakfast every day. There are small notes with vigorous handwriting and little hearts. They are funny and cute. When I'm at work, the feeling is no longer of being spied on, but of stranger companionship. Coming home from the night shift, the sound of my footsteps in the dark alley touches my heartstrings. David asked me why I was so tired, and I said it was because of poverty. He was flustered, and I stopped talking and waited. Poverty is a disease that has plagued me for many years and is difficult to cure. I am busy for money, like a robot on standby, but when I look at his silver earrings, I know that I can never reach them. So the first time I was invited to a birthday party, I refused and preferred not to. I will stay with you well. But, baby, if you feel that there are some jobs you don't like or are too dangerous, please remember to tell me, okay? I'll find a way. The screen lit up and I waited for the answer. If it were within reach right now, could you be brave just once? I replied okay. After many twists and turns, another year has passed. Today is different from usual. As soon as I entered the classroom, Kelly made her eyes excitedly and whispered in my ear that David had only invited me, a girl, to his birthday party. I felt like I was on edge, with eyes burning in my eyes. I straightened my back, sighed and said I had work. Kelly hit me on the arm angrily and asked me to take a leave, but I shook my head. The gaze behind me was like autumn leaves blown away by the wind, shrinking and extinguishing. My heart trembled and I dared not look back. At night, after closing time at the bar, I looked at my phone, but there was no message. Anonymous is silent today. I clenched my phone and felt for the gift box in my pocket. After a moment of silence, he straightened his collar and started his journey home. The sky was dark and the daytime lights flickered slowly. The way home is quiet, and the lonely footsteps echo. Walking into a quiet alley is no longer scary. I turned my back to the alley and said softly to the shadow behind me, "Why don't you come out and talk to me?" The wind blew at the entrance of the alley, and two black silhouettes trembled. "David." I called out the name. The street lights are dim and moths are fluttering. The shadow finally revealed itself, and David approached, his face as white as porcelain and as beautiful as jade. The shadow also moved forward and merged with the shadow under my feet. He said, "So, you already knew it. The eyes are dull and the luster is gone. No wonder you stay away from me." His voice was low. I walked closer and David looked confused and timid. I ordered him not to move and he froze. I was close enough to see the redness in the corners of his eyes. I reached out and pressed my fingers, the redness staining my eyes. I asked softly, "Why are you still crying?" David collapsed at my touch, whispering helplessly, "You hate me, you don't want me, you." I stood on tiptoe and blew at the corner of his eyes, and he trembled. I looked at him, a handsome and willful boy, timid and cute. "I don't hate you, nor do I want you. But David, tell me, why did you do this?" I seduced him, he sent me anonymous text messages, he accompanied me to school and work, and brought me breakfast, but he avoided me and was afraid of me. David, his knuckles white, gripped my wrist. He lowered his head and cut open himself, "Because I like you, I have always liked you. When you're not looking at me, I want to bully you and make you look at me all the time. But when you look at me, I am afraid that there is disgust or calmness in your eyes. If I can only be a stranger, I don't want it. If there is no love, then it is okay to hate or dislike." There was a complex and obscure look in his eyes, filled with self-mockery. The wind was strong at the entrance of the alley, and he spread out his pride and tortured himself repeatedly. "It's really bad. I evaluate truthfully." David closed his eyes and waited for the verdict. The alley was silent. I traced my fingers over the corner of his lips and kissed him softly with my eyes closed. "If you want it, just come and get it. What's the point of being sneaky?" Lip and tongue touched separately. David stared at me blankly, like a dumb robot after its first kiss. I called him, my eyes warm. "I'm sorry for not attending your birthday before and today." I took his hand and interlocked our fingers with our palms together. But I thought, we have to be honest with ourselves, and today is the best time. Our eyes met and I saw each other. I whispered, "To be honest, you're really not good at chasing people, but..." She kissed his lips again, "I can teach you." I took out the gift box and the silver earrings. They were not as valuable as his, but I carefully selected them with my salary of several months. I said seriously, "David, I have no one else. My parents died in a car accident when I was a child, and I have been alone for so many years. So, are you coming over? Come over here." David directly replaced my earrings, held my lower back, and moved very slowly to give me time to stop. He hooked me and held me tightly in his arms. Heartbeat resonance. He bent his head and buried his head in my neck, and the warmth and wetness soaked into my collar. He replied in a muffled voice, "Okay. Every word is worth 1,000 gold." My eyes were gentle and I embraced the boy. Happy birthday, David. We have a long way to go. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, the day when new students enter school, the cicadas are chirping in the midsummer and the green grass is growing wildly. Among the crowd of people, I happened to look up and caught a glimpse of a young man in a white shirt. The young man had stunning eyes and eyebrows, and he smiled freely against the light. In that one glance, I saw him clearly, and only him.